Hello again, and welcome to the Mother's Justice Show on 1150 KKNW. I'm so glad you're here with us today. And thank you for tuning in and for supporting voices that are working to create healing, justice, and real change in our communities. I'm your host, Sylvia Feliciano. I'm a Marine Corps veteran, mental health advocate, and founder of Solace Mind, focusing on making health accessible through culturally affirming, trauma-informed care. We offer life coaching, hypnotherapy, mindfulness programs, and emotional wellness tools and solutions to help organizations and their workforce, individuals and communities build resilience, self-awareness, and emotional regulation. I'm so excited and honored to have our guests today for our mental health show segment centering around men's mental health. And it's an honor to bring on our very first guest on the Mother's Justice Show. He's a powerful voice in equity leadership, community advocacy, and systemic change, Shomari Jones. Shomari and I first connected as chairs on the MLK Celebration Committee back in, I believe it was 2013. I was chairing the workshops. And we worked also through the Seattle Urban League. I was with the Young Professionals. And then I entered the Leadership Tomorrow program, which he was also a graduate of, I think, a year or two. I was 2015. What year were you in, Shomari?
Oh, 2015. I was
Yes,
2010.
Oh, 2010. Okay.
Yeah.
So we had worked together through workshops, and I really honored his work. He is the principal lead of the Bridge Consultancy, right? The Bridge Consultancy, where he partners with organizations, school districts, and community leaders to move equity from theory to action. His approach is human-centered, results-driven, and rooted in dismantling systemic barriers to create cultures where belonging is real and justice is sustained. Previously, he served as Director of Equity and Strategic Engagement for the Bellevue School District. And before that, he led equity-focused programs with the Urban League, the YMCA, and College Success Foundation. But you're also a part of the Black Achievers program as well, right?
Yeah, I ran Black Achievers for YMCA. That's
Okay,
YMCA
got
for
it.
about 5 years. And what a rewarding experience working with those young people, helping to cultivate those minds to become our, future leaders of the world. And so, yeah, super cool experience.
Well, today's show is going to be an even more super cool experience, but we'll get into that later on. Shomari, go ahead. I want you to take lead center of this discussion. We're talking about men's mental health, and you have been leading this work for as long as I know, well before I knew you. And as I was planning this, I knew that for this month of June, mental health awareness focused on men, you were definitely the person I wanted to have this conversation with, especially because you've mentored so many within organizations, within classrooms, community spaces. And I just wanted to open up the forum for you to have that discussion, bring that discussion and that awareness to our audience.
Yeah, and I really want this to be like a dialogue, a discussion, because, I don't want to consider myself in any regard the expert in this field. I am a Black man. I consider myself a perpetual learner, even at the stage and age that I am, despite the fact that I am often called to lead many of these conversations. I think that any conversation that I am called to lead, I find myself walking away, learning something new and taking away from it something of value that helps me individually to grow. And I grow from engaging with those who are adults all the way down to those who are young people, embodying and embracing things that sometimes I never would have imagined that I would learn and grow from. And so I find value in even just having the opportunity to have discourse and dialogue in these types of conversations. I know that we have couched and framed today's conversation around brother how are you really? And I
Yes.
think about this as it pertains to a lot of the history of the experiences that I have had personally, as I have been catapulted into positions of either authority or
Mm.
sort of what some might consider the light, the spotlight of someone who leads endeavors or efforts that help to bring along others through their journeys and pathways, lifting them from experiences of trauma, or pulling them out of experiences for which they don't themselves have either the muscles or the wherewithal to lift themselves from. And I think one must understand that even those of us who are given those responsibilities sometimes um, undergo a lot of trauma while
Yeah.
helping to support others who themselves are experiencing those traumas. And so I think about individuals. I sometimes take moments of silence for folks who are put in those positions of what some might consider power. I don't. I don't consider them positions of power. I consider them positions of responsibility.
Mm.
Many people volunteer for those responsibilities. Some people don't. Some people feel that it is their obligation. I believe that from a very young age, I was born into a obligation to reach back and to support my community. I mean, my grandfather was maybe the primary male figure in my life. He was a pastor.
Mm.
And I think I walked with him every single place that he went outside of his traditional job at the steel mill in Gary, Indiana. And church was the thing, and his church was not close. We drove to
Wow.
church 2 hours plus away every single Sunday. So it was a 2.5 hour drive to church. It was a 2.5 hour drive back from church, and like those experiences really help to cement one's spirit in like this giving perspective, like this servant leadership. We know about this servant leadership from Leadership Tomorrow, right? It is
Right.
inculcated in our minds as,
Yes.
a responsibility that we have. I don't know that I had words for it
Right.
earlier in life, but like once I did, I was like, there's the light bulb. Like this
Right.
is what this was, this
Right.
whole time. Like some of us come from a certain amount of privilege where we no longer were the folks who were in substantial need. We had enough of what we needed in the world to be able to now give back to those who didn't have what it was that they needed. And we were able to ask that question, how are you? And like, no, for real, like, how are you really?
How
You
are you really?
know,
Right.
and like for those who aren't really doing as well as they could have been doing, or those who aren't really surviving, because some of us aren't thriving,
Right.
some of us are
Right.
merely surviving. And then there are those of us who pretend to be surviving, but we're standing on one leg,
Yes.
and barely even that. The other leg is not even touching the ground. Um, and there is a need at times for individuals to just come and put an arm on your shoulder, or to provide an embrace, or to give deep words of affirmation, or to just be like, yo, I see you, man, I see you,
Right.
and in the midst of seeing you, like, just understand that if and when you need, like, I'm not gonna push myself up on you, but
Mm.
if and when you need, just know that I got you, and
Right.
like, we don't all have that, and we don't always like look for or seek out or even know that we need it.
Exactly. Right.
But when we receive it
Mm.
and when it comes, it's a thing that I promise you, it overcomes you and it provides you with that other leg that is
Yes.
not touching the ground. It gives you a foundation or a pillar in that building that you're trying to construct to ensure that it is firm in ways that it was not yet firm. I remember back when I was working for the Urban League and that building was undergoing a retrofitting because it was in risk of, we live in an area here in Washington where if there is an earthquake, there are many old buildings that will easily fall and shatter. And I
Yeah.
remember very well that there was a company that was hired that provided these metal braces on the exterior and the interior of the building. And I likened that to like the brace that we need for which if things start to shake up,
Yeah.
if the ground gets a little bit shaky, there's a foundation there that holds us together, right? There is there's a brace, there's an added brace. And sometimes that added brace is an outside source. It's not
Yes.
a brace that is built within you. It's an outside source that is added to you, through an entity that might be another human being. It might be words of affirmation. It might be a verse. It might be your religion. It might be your family or your children. It might be something exterior to who you actually are. It might be your own individual self that
Yeah.
helps you to keep on keeping on. And that's just so important. And so as we think about the theme of today, like, how are you really? I think that that is an important piece for us to lift.
I agree. I agree. And you provided so many profound nuggets, golden nuggets, I would say. I also think that it takes a certain amount of vulnerability that may be scary for some men to take on because they have this persona, or we're socially conditioned to think that mental health, number one, is a stigma, right? There's a stigma surrounding mental health and seeking out mental health resources. um, how does one, how, because I can't speak, right? I'm not a man. How do you relay that message to someone who doesn't know how to become vulnerable enough to ask for help?
It's a very hard question, like the destigmatization of mental health is like an age-long challenge,
Right.
like that is embedded in us from our
Right.
parents, our families, our community, and society.
Yeah.
For you and I to walk up to someone and say, like, I can be your mental health support, despite what your family tells you, or society tells you, like that's not going to work, unfortunately.
Right.
Like we have to find ways to tell stories and to tell people um the legacy and the history of how we got here, and why we refuse to be vulnerable. I was watching a clip yesterday, and I'm not going to get this perfectly right because I haven't studied it well enough yet, and I
Mhm.
haven't ingested it well enough yet. Um, but there was a black male, professorial, like he wasn't a professor necessarily, but he was certainly teaching a lesson about the difference between Black African Americans, Black Caribbeans, and Black Africans. And
Mm.
he was relating this narrative around how Black African Americans have like this strong sense of confidence, but not a strong sense of um, an ability to have like this deep self-awareness and this deep ability to have um, I'm trying to think of the proper word. It's not self-sufficiency. It's more like this um, ability to like coalesce with the things around them that help
Mhm.
them to achieve the greatness that they need because they've been put down for so many
Right.
centuries, right? The confidence comes from this ability um, for centuries that they have built up due to the competition
Right.
that they have faced, whether it was within the fields of slavery, if they have spent many years enslaved,
Yeah.
back in, the 1600s and beyond, on to present day, where we as our current Black selves, deal with, post-traumatic slave disorder,
Right.
and we embrace the things that our parents and their parents and their parents have taught them. We embrace that male egotism, and that confidence that continues to allow for us to push forward and achieve like these great things. And the confidence lives in sometimes these silos,
Right.
but there's a lot of healing that we have never overcome as individuals. And sometimes our abilities to build relationships with others, and our abilities to overcome some of the traumas that we have yet to overcome that really need some of the mental health support that is available to us, are not realized because it has been stigmatized,
Yeah.
and that has been a burden in our society for who knows how long. And so, like, there have been a multitude of famous people, movie stars, athletes who have campaigned to destigmatize mental health and mental health supports for the purpose of understanding that we have work to do, and in
Mhm.
particular, our Black men who are somewhat of like the pillars of our Black community,
Absolutely.
um, to overcome the barriers that prevent us from healing from things that were not the things that maybe happen to us now, but they happen to individuals that passed that along to us centuries ago, and it lives inside of us. And we don't know what to do with it. It's
Right.
confusing.
Yeah.
And we have
Yeah.
a healing that must occur. And so when we ask about, like, how are you really? Sometimes we don't even know how to answer that question, like, because we
You know,
don't know how are we really. We're a
right.
part of systems
Yes.
that demoralize us and put us in spaces where we have to continue to compete against one another. We do not find solace even in spaces where we convene as groups with one another because we're still in competition with one another. We don't know how to interrelate because the healing has yet to be something that has been realized, right? And so there is just a lot of work that we must do to tear apart the things that have been done to us for many, many years. And we have to continue to ensure that we're telling this story and we're helping people to see and understand that we're struggling, and the struggle is something that we have to like acknowledge and identify, and then seek the support to diminish so that we can live healthier lives, and then we can be those who support others who come along, because if not, we will pass this along for generations and generations.
Absolutely, absolutely. You touched on so many wonderful points. And I don't know if you recall when I first started going to Las Vegas, you reminded me of an experience when I started going to Las Vegas. It was because of the emotional intelligence classes I was taking. And I don't know if you recall the phone call that I had with you, because I had learned about emotional intelligence, and you spoke about how we are not given the articulation to describe what we're experiencing, and describe how we're feeling inside. And we're not even given tools for self-regulation, for self-awareness. And we've had this conversation even about social emotional learning for students. And I recall, because I wanted everyone to get this course, to take this course. And my coach ended up wanting you to coach because you had, you were like, nah, I don't need that. I've already gone through that. And I think that there's something to be said for the lack of awareness for these types of programs, because they weren't provided to us at an early age. When I went through that emotional intelligence program, I knew right away that I wanted to tell everybody about it, because this is stuff that we should have been learning from birth. And so it was very telling. The emotional intelligence, the training, the knowledge, the awareness that you already had, that the coach wanted to recruit you to teach others. And so I can see how and why you have been such a powerful, and I know you don't like that word, but I want to go back and circle back to something that you said, because you didn't see it as power. And some people have the perspective of, it's innate. It is my responsibility. It is accountability to the community that has raised me. We can have so many different perspectives, but we get it done. We see the importance to it. We're committed to providing it. But then there is a such thing as compassion fatigue, right? So when all is said and done and the doors close and you're by yourself, what do you do to take care of yourself?
It's, I always get asked that question. I even get asked that question in interviews, and I struggle
Mm,
because I don't have a sound answer for it. Like it shifts all the time.
yeah.
Um, I would like to say that I had a concrete movement that like I practiced, like meditation or
Right.
therapy. And I don't, but I recommend it. Like if if you were to ask me like what are the things that I recommend, oh my God, I have a laundry list of things that I don't practice. But like I've been one of those people who like I've been afforded the benefit of having decent enough jobs where I've been able to access the things that I felt like I needed in order to like come home from like these heavy circumstances and like enjoy the lifestyle I've built around me, And so like I bought this thing and I liked it for a little while. Like, and I bought this other thing and I liked it for a little while, and then I traveled to these places and that was fun for a minute, and I created this like this backyard experience that felt like an oasis and there are all these different things and I haven't landed on the thing that like is the one that brings me the greatest amount of peace and I'm still searching for it like
Yeah.
and I hate that that's the answer that I have to give but like it's a perpetual search. I find myself like as one of those people who's so deeply trenched like in the movement and in the work that like I'm always on to the next thing. Like where can I continue to be like in spaces where I am providing opportunity for others, not thinking about myself. And I'm not suggesting this. Like I am not a proponent of like telling other people like to throw yourself into work. Like I just find joy in providing a hand to anyone who needs support or being an advocate for. Like I sit on a bunch of boards, I fight against oppression. I try to squelch or diminish um, power structures and regimes where those regimes are they themselves diminishing those who are without power or don't have a seat at the table. Like those are the things that bring me joy, and I find like energize me the most, and so when I try to like come down and sit in the backyard by a fire or sit in a hot tub or go for a motorcycle ride, or those aren't the things that bring me joy. Like I'm out here like on the front line, like I'm in the trenches, and like that's what kind of like amps me up,
Yeah.
and so I think that might be my thing. That might be
Yeah.
my thing, and so and I'm okay with that.
I appreciate that. I truly appreciate it. How can people get a hold of you should they want to contact the Bridge Consultancy? What does that look like?
I think the LinkedIn profile is probably the best, Shomari
Okay.
Jones.
Okay.
It's just Shomari Jones, LinkedIn. You can find me anywhere it's open and discoverable. Very easy. If not, Shomari M Jones at Gmail is also another easy way. SHOM as in Mary, ARI Jones at Gmail. Um, and Shamari M Jones at Gmail. I think I left the M out. And either way, I am open and available. So love to be a support, love to be engaged. Happy to be here with you today.
Thank you so much, and I hope you're going to stay because we have a full circle coming with a connection that I just learned through planning this this show today.
Yeah, I'm
So
gonna
we're
stay
going to take a
online.
little break. I'm so excited. We're going to take a short break, and we will be right back. You're listening to the Mother's Justice Show on 1150 KKNW.
The Mother's Justice Show is brought to you by H.G. Walden and the Virtues Healing Circles. Join us for Wisdom and Wellness with Reverend Walden, a monthly virtual and in-person healing circle that focuses on community healing and growth. Learn more at virtueshealing.com. That's virtueshealing.com. Also, be sure to join our healing group on Facebook. Again, visit us at virtueshealing.com today.
Market Street Shoes is happy to sponsor the Mother's Justice Show in honor of our mother, Jackie Higgins Rosebrook, who spent her life fighting for social justice, and also in honor of all mothers who fight for social justice. Market Street Shoes, fashionable footwear and apparel for life's everyday adventures, in the heart of Ballard since 2006. Visit marketstreetshoes.com.
Hello again, and welcome to the Mother's Justice Show on 1150 KKNW. I'm your host, Sylvia Feliciano, and we are here with Shomari Jones. We just heard his profound story. But before I get to my next guest, I want to share something special that came up in conversation during the show's planning. I found out that our next guest and Shomari actually have a connection, and I want Jarrell and Shomari to have a conversation. But Jarrell, you were in high school when you first met Shomari. Can you tell us how our conversation happened and how this all came to be?
Thank you for the opportunity to speak here. Again, my name is Jarrell Marshall. In our preparation for the upcoming Reclaiming Wellness conference that's hosted by the Therapy Fund Foundation, of which we are both connected. I think that you had posed the idea for folks to be interviewed ahead of the conference. And myself and my organization are presenting at this year's conference, and jumped at the opportunity to be able to do this interview. Really excited for it, looking forward to it. And just in our conversations leading up to the conference, I know that you had mentioned the name of Mr. Shomari Jones. I'm like, you know what? I know that guy. Uh, yeah, we had a great conversation after that.
I know. I was so happy to hear that he had been working with the Black Achievers while you were a high school student.
Yeah.
And I brought it to Shamari, and Shamari's like, I think I remember him. I was like, well, y'all are going to be reconnecting. So I just love the full circle. But I do want to formally introduce you. I was just so excited about that connection being made between you two. Jarrell is the executive director of Reclaim, which is a nonprofit that exists at the intersection of reentry and mental health, which is what we're discussing for mental health awareness focused on men this segment. As the grandson and son of people directly impacted and traumatized by the criminal legal system, Jarrell is someone who understands that there is more to an individual's worth and value than their experiences with trauma and the institutions that cause further trauma. Not only is Jarrell on his own journey of healing, feeling, and reintegration, he's also committed to utilizing his access to resources to forge and cultivate the relationships necessary to ensure that community members who Reclaim serves have access to the resources they need to be supported, to be held, and to flourish. That is so, so very powerful. And Shamari, I know that you're proud of this high school student that you once mentored.
So
Can you tell
proud,
them? I
man.
know.
You
Very good.
young people, man, you all are like so, I from time to time, Sylvia, I run into the young people who I once thought that I mentored, and come find out, like, these young people really taught me like how to be a better human,
Mhm.
which absolutely helped to catapult me into opportunity and positions. And I look at and observe some of them now that I get an opportunity to come across and see what it is and how they're like doing life. And it is so extraordinary how they are changing the world and changing the game in ways I could not have imagined and cannot do my own self. And so, like Jarrell, I'm beyond proud. Like, you're exceptional. I got a chance to read your website, and see of the unbelievable work that you are doing, and fight the power, man. Be the resistance and continue forward, man. Kudos. That's amazing.
I appreciate that. Yeah, and we're doing our absolute best with the work that we do over at Reclaim. But, I just want to, give you, your flowers. Thank you for, your kind words and everything that you've said. But, as that 15-year-old, freshman going into his sophomore year in high school, having the opportunity to, spend almost every day that summer, with you and with, the other, folks that were a part of the program who were mentors, and who simply just set aside the time to be present with us. The impact of simply just being present,
Mm.
and making yourself available to us, had a tremendous impact. And I know that that wasn't something that I was really receiving from the male figures in my life at home at the time. And I know that, as a teenager who, tries to act like nothing bothers them, and that everything is just as it is. Being able to communicate the impact and the value of something like that in my life wasn't something that I had the words for, or the ability to really speak to. But I can tell you, 20 years later, that that experience and that opportunity to just interact with you and spend time with you was something that had a tremendous amount of impact on my life, as well as that of my friends and peers.
Wow,
So
that's
thank you.
powerful, man. That's powerful. How
Yeah.
powerful is that?
I
I'm
love
so
this.
glad I'm on the phone today, man. Like, that is amazing. That
You
was a
both
good summer.
are.
It
That was
was.
such a spectacular summer, man.
Yeah.
Like, we had almost a hundred young men
Wow.
at the University of Washington, and we
Yeah.
did the best of the best things. Like, it was like my first summer here. And so like I was just inculcated to the state and I was with young black boys, a lot from Tacoma, a couple from Seattle, like, oh, you all changed me.
Wow.
And like you are
Wow.
I'm an engineer, an aerospace engineer. You all are the reason why I do this work. I never
Wow.
went back to engineering because of these dudes. I never went back to engineering because of
I
these
love that.
dudes. Isn't that crazy? Like
That's
I
Yeah.
became a
beautiful.
justice warrior because of these dudes.
Mhm.
Man, that was it. Like
Wow.
appreciate y'all, man.
Wow.
Appreciate you. That was
I
cool.
knew this was going to be powerful. I knew this was going
Thank
to
you.
be powerful. I had no, I didn't even know that you guys knew each other. And once you told me your story, Jarrell, I was like, oh, this was divine intervention. And I'm just so glad that I get to witness a full circle coming together. Jarrell, can you tell us a little bit about Reclaim and the organization?
Yeah, I would love to. Reclaim is a nonprofit organization based out of Seattle. And we are a nonprofit that works, I like to say, at the intersection of reentry in mental health. Because for far too many men, especially Black men in our community, coming home from prison is just the beginning of another struggle. The struggle to be seen, the struggle to be well, the struggle to be whole. And this work matters to me. This work is important to me, not only as somebody who is systems impacted myself, but as somebody who is the son, the grandson, and the great grandson of men who were also impacted by the criminal legal system and served time, various lengths of time, in just about every decade, spanning back to the 50s. As the father of a son who's just 4 years old, and as somebody who understands the impact of generational cycles, I'm determined to ensure that this current generation of youth and of children don't have to continue experiencing
Yeah.
um, having a parent that's incarcerated.
Yeah, thank you for that. I know when I was volunteering on the crisis line here in Seattle at the Crisis Connections, um, I have had so many calls of mothers whose sons are actively um, intending to harm themselves, and there are lacking of resources.
Mhm.
Um, I know with my own son, when I moved to Bothell back in 2011 for my fellowship, when it was just a temporary move from New York for my master's degree, I didn't know anything. I hadn't even known anyone in Seattle. And I tried so very hard for at least a year to find mentors for him as a Black Latino in Bothell, of all places. And this, we're talking 12, 13 years ago, where there
Mhm.
were no resources for him. And I didn't know that coming from New York. And, um, and he experienced a lot of racism and internalized it. What advice, one or both of you, because sons of single moms are at risk, right? Especially when they don't have mentors, stable mentors in their life. What um, words would you offer for moms, dads, guardians, grandmothers, relatives who are raising young sons today that may not have stable mentorships in their life?
Ms. Shamar, did you have something for that?
Yeah, but I want this to be the Jarrell hour. So like I want you to shoot, man.
No, I appreciate that. Um, I'm more than happy to share the space with you. I think that the message that I would share is more of a message that I would broadcast to community. And that is of the maxim that we hear in so many spaces of the fact that it takes a village.
Yes.
Support is something that we all need. whether we, have the words to articulate it, the bravery, the heart to articulate it in the moment when we really need it or not. And also relationships matter. When it comes to asking for help or seeking support, like we are more inclined to reach out to people that we have relationships with. And I think that that is very true for our young folks in community. They're not just going around, broadcasting the struggles that they're having with everybody out there. And we, as adults who have, went through our own, childhood and development, may be able to recognize that this young person is struggling or this young person is having a hard time and they're acting out physically because of things that are going on internally. But it's on us to like, really recognize what it is that's going on and try to create the space to allow for number one, young person to be comfortable enough to reach out and say what it is that they need, and then
Yeah.
also to make the space to support that person. And I think that that's applicable not just to our youth and our young people who need our support as they navigate the challenges of life with limited resources. But it's also something that we need to be providing to our neighbors because we're all going through it, and we all would rather rely on those relationships to help support and get us through the challenging times that are inevitable.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And thinking about the work that you do, I was reflecting on those that are reintegrating. How best do they reintegrate, take care of their own mental health? What resources, what spaces are out there for them to be successful in their reentry, their reintegration?
That's a great question. And I would say that reentry is not just about jobs. Reentry is
Mm-hmm.
not just about housing. It's also about healing. How do we reintegrate these people, these community members who are sons or mothers, who are daughters, who are fathers? How do we reintegrate them back into being home?
Right.
When they've been subject to a system that has, where they have been witness to all types of harm, some known, some unknown, some that folks will talk about and be very upfront and honest about, and some that are just too painful that they would rather keep it in and keep it bottled up. Um, and so mental health is a reentry issue. And many of the people that we have returning home, um, they face untreated trauma, such as depression, such as PTSD, yet few have access to culturally competent care. And that's really one of the things that we are focused on over at Reclaim is how do we provide support that is responsive to the specific needs of this population that we're seeking to serve, of people that have been directly and indirectly impacted by the criminal legal system. Because it's not just the people who have been inside of a jail or a prison or an institution that have suffered harm. It's also the family members and loved ones and community
Right.
members
Right.
that are just simply trying to support their loved one that is going through this difficult time or who has gone through it and is trying to navigate the challenges and realities of being back in the world. That's what we seek to do is to provide, again, a culturally competent and like responsive model of care for people that have um, had this particular experience in their life and are seeking to get their life back on track. I would much rather, be talking about stories here, but, I think that numbers tell a very telling story at times and when used correctly and intentionally. And when we look at the amount of people that are incarcerated, excuse incarcerated in this country, um, over 20 million of the people, just around 20 million of the people that are incarcerated are Black men. Um, and Yeah, again, like it's one of those things that's really hard, like throwing numbers out there. Like it may seem just like a number, me saying 19, 19, 20 million people being incarcerated in this country, being black men or being, black folks. But like that is a tremendous amount of people. Like we
Yeah.
have how many million people here in the state of Washington? I think somewhere around 3, 4, maybe 5 million people here in the state. Like we've got enough black men that are incarcerated in this country to fully populate a number of states in this country. And to me, that is astounding. What's even more astounding is to look at the amount of children in this country who have an incarcerated parent. And I think that that number is somewhere around 1 in 28 children. But when you look at the amount of black children in this country that have experienced having a parent that was incarcerated, that number jumps from 1 in 28 to 1 in 9. And, I think 1 in 15 black children have a parent that is currently incarcerated. So, like, these are like real world impacts that touch just about every corner of our community and our society. Um, and the people that are releasing home are our family members, our neighbors. And I think that when we talk about community safety, when we talk about um, when we talk about any like hot topic issue that impacts our community and our society currently, like we have to talk about how do we support people. And again, the work that we do with Reclaim is focused on supporting a very specific segment of our community and our society. But we support them with um, real world supports that have impact and that center their humanity in the work that we do.
I love that. I love that because it is so needed. In the work that we do with, when I was with the crisis intervention, we had community organizations talk about the reentry programs, talk about the mental health courts and how they are providing resources so that we're, addressing recidivism. How does the comprehensive, holistic model of care look like? Because you touched on a very important point that we have to include the families, right? Because the families are also in this experience. They're receiving, someone who has experienced known and unknown trauma. And how do we make space for the understanding, giving them, grace, giving them space, but also giving themselves grace and support?
It's a great question. And I don't know if there's a one size fits all answer
Right,
to
right.
that question.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that people have complex realities, have nuanced realities that make them who they are, that have shaped them being and becoming the people that they are walking through this world. But I think that in acknowledging the complexities and the nuances um, that each individual intrinsically has and is, um, allows us to, um, requires us to have a more open mind as we approach providing support for a person, as we approach addressing the needs that a person has that requires them to be well in this world. And I think that that starts with a conversation, that starts with asking questions, that starts with us being curious versus, leaping to judgments. Um, and I think that through that, we'll be able to begin understanding how to, um, yeah, provide more holistic supports and envision a more inclusive community, um, yeah, for people who have experienced things such as complex trauma and are dealing with mental health challenges.
Yeah, it's so very important. We were talking about the mental health stigma that is the mindset of our communities. And I first engaged, I was recollecting an experience I had with Shomari back in 2018, when I first started when I started attending emotional intelligence courses in Vegas, and how powerful it was to me, because I never had, those courses in life. I didn't even in college, I hadn't come across emotional intelligence learning, these active exercises that really made you reflect on how you get to self-regulate, become self-aware, take control, accountability. And so it was very powerful. How can folks get a hold of you as we're coming to a close? And thank you both for such a powerful show, for such a powerful connection, for a closing of the circle, full circle coming to be. How can folks contact Reclaim if they need support?
Yeah, Reclaim. I encourage everybody to reach out, learn more about our programming, and any events that we may have coming up. We're going to be giving a talk at the Reclaiming Wellness Conference that's coming up in July, which
Yes.
is the third annual Reclaiming Wellness Conference hosted
Yes.
by the amazing Therapy Fund Foundation. So shout out to those folks over there. I know
Yes.
that we love
Ashley
them.
McGirt, yes.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about that, because that's amazing. I was able to volunteer in the very first one, but I wasn't able to do the second one. And now I'm working, that's how I met you, as you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
Shomari, I don't know if you've heard, but we have the Reclaim Wellness. It's led by Ashley McGirt, with the amazing committee, such dedicated folks to providing. Go ahead, Jarrell. I'll let you speak on it.
Shamari, have you heard of the Therapy Fund Foundation?
No.
No? Well, yeah, it's an organization that was started during the pandemic by Ashley McGirt Adair, who was actually a therapist herself, and who recognized the challenges, the mental health challenges that, folks of color, primarily Black folks, were facing during the pandemic, and just wanted to start a way to be able to support these people and being able to access mental health care, knowing that seeking therapy is not something that is cheap and is honestly not affordable for a lot of people, particularly if they don't have insurance to be able to offset some of the cost of therapy. And so she started a free therapy voucher program, and they have absolutely blossomed in terms of the amount of support that they're able to offer, as well as the partnerships that they've been able to develop with companies in the private sector, as well as those in the public sector, to be able to more meaningfully lean into supporting people with mental health.
Yeah, and I'm proud. I was a recipient for her first, I don't know if it's the first or second round of scholarships, because I'm pursuing my mental health counseling degree. And I told her, I'm committed. I will be a counselor volunteer. So I'm definitely committed. So I was so pleased. But it's an amazing organization providing access at we're looking at losing Medicaid, and that also means losing mental health resources for the vulnerable the most vulnerable in our communities. And so I'm so glad that it's there. I'm so happy about the Reclaim Wellness Fair, the only one on this side of the country, probably the only one in the country, that's led by Black folks, by the Black community, for the BIPOC community, featuring BIPOC communities. So please make sure you get your tickets and attend, because there are going to be a wealth of resources there for mental health, for families, for youth. There are going to be a slew of workshops there. And we just want to open up that opportunity for folks before tickets sell out.
Yeah, for sure. Highly recommend. And you can learn more about our work.
Yes.
I was just going to say, you can learn more about the work that Reclaim is doing. You can check us out on social media. reclaim_WA. You can also check out our website. It's reclaimwa.org. And my contact information is on the website. So if anybody has any questions, wants to follow up with me, please do. My door is always open, and I just love building relationships with people in order to do great work and positively impact lives.
Thank you both so very much. And again, I'm so pleased that I was able to bring you two together. Coincidentally, it's been powerful. Thank you so much. You are listening to the Mother's Justice Show on 1150 AM KKNW. Thank you again. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you.